This is Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network.
We welcome you to hour number 2 on this Wednesday afternoon on Money Moves on VSiN. He's Joe Serralo. I am Ben Stevens. And Joe, what more could you want from an awesome Wednesday in mid-February in the world of sports? We are about to get underway in our fourth and final quarterfinal of the day in the men's Olympic hockey tournament. The United States continues its hunt for a gold medal, taking on Sweden. We've got a monster and marquee slate of college basketball that we will preview in this second and final hour. Some continued Major League Baseball previews and picks as well. Joe, we've got a lot to get to here in this second hour on Money Moves. Glad to be doing it with you.
Yeah, man, it's going to be a jam-packed hour, including some quick guests right off the top to preview some golf, something that's kind of gotten lost in the shuffle with college hoops and MLB futures. So I can't wait to dive in.
A premier event each and every year on the PGA Tour in Los Angeles at Riviera Country Club, the Genesis Invitational. Neil Parker of Covers joins us in just a moment. But as we get this second hour started, this segment of Money Moves is sponsored by Upside. Turn your gas purchases into real cash back with the free Upside app. Download Upside now and use promo code SPORTS for 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill-up. Again, promo code SPORTS for 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill-up. So without further ado, let's take a look at the Genesis Invitational this week in Los Angeles as we head to the Progressive guest line. Neil Parker of Covers joins us here to break it all down. Neil, as always, we appreciate your time. Thanks for being here once again. A great preview last week of a great event that we had at the Farmers Insurance Open. Maybe I messed up the name of that, but whatever. The Pebble Beach Pro-Am, excuse me. That's what we had last week. Colin Morikawa going home as your champion. A great week in store at the Genesis Invitational at Riviera.
Yeah, big time. I mean, it's a storied course. We missed it in the rotation last year just because of the wildfires there, or the fires in Palisade Paradise. So that was too bad. And happy to have it back. I get ready to hear all about the Kikuyu grass, the Poa greens, easy birdie on number 1, drivable par 4 on 10. It's a pretty storied track and a favorite on the PGA Tour for both players, fans, hopefully bettors this week.
Absolutely.
Neil, speaking of favorites,
look at the betting prices here, Neil, and you see some of those numbers. Of course, every time, as we discussed last week, ahead of Pebble, Scottie Scheffler, just a drastically short favorite at a 3-1 number as I see it on DraftKings. What is the approach with world number 1, who is off to yet another torrid start to begin this PGA Tour campaign?
Yeah, so for me, this week is a Scottie Scheffler week, and that really changes my betting card quite significantly as far as the options that I can look at through the secondary and third tiers on the board. But Scheffler, again, as you mentioned, otherworldly heater right now. He spotted the field almost 10 strokes in the first 2 rounds of his last events, still finished T3, T4 the last 2 weeks. So avoid a little bit of first round hiccups, and he'll be right there throughout the event. And he's the perfect stylistic and statistical fit for what it takes to win at Riviera. And it's one of the most predictive courses on the PGA Tour rotation. So we do see a lot of repeat winners. Course knowledge is incredibly important. And like Johnny Miller says, you have to have every club in your bag and every shot in your game. And Scottie Scheffler fits that bill.
Neil, obviously, Scottie, the massive favorite here, coming in at 3-1. But as we look down the board a little bit, where might you be able to find some value in the outright market?
So I'll just kind of go some popular picks that I've seen and looking at some of the betting insights. Cameron Young, a little further down, is a popular play. Tommy Fleetwood is also garnering a lot of attention. It's that tee to green ball striking ability that really is needed this week. I went further with my next player after Scottie was Victor Hovland, and he's right in around the 35 to 42 to 1. He has 4 consecutive top 20s at this course, and he's also pretty strong the last 7-8 events with 6 top 15 finishes, worldwide. Didn't have his best week last week. So I think that's actually why we're getting the good value that we are. And with the heightened importance of tee to green play, ball striking, that's where I think Hovland presents a little bit of value, and we get a little bit of the dip, because if he hadn't have played as poorly as he did last week, he would be trading at a much shorter number, in my opinion. So, buy that little, the dip in the price and performance, and look for him to come back and have another strong showing at Riviera.
42-1 right now on Viktor Hovland to win the Genesis Invitational outright. I saw some content earlier. They have put up some trees on the 15th tee box to keep Viktor Hovland from trying to drive it into the 17th fairway, I believe, as a way of taking a shortcut line to gain some of those strokes. Neil Parker from Covers joining us here to preview the Genesis Invitational this week at Riviera Country Club. When you think about being back in LA, it will feel like a homecoming for the entire event and a Southern California native in Max Homa. How do you expect Homa to fare this week back at Riv?
Yeah, so he's another player that might not be in the most perfect current form as it stands, but he has 5 straight top 20s here. And if you look at a minimum of 24 rounds play, he's the true strokes gained leader in the field of, at least 24 rounds played. So that's incredibly encouraging. And also, of course, he's a winner in 2021. So he's another player that he's been popular as a long shot ticket that I can see and gather. I got him in at right around plus 8,000, I believe, but also like him in the top 20 market at plus money value too. I believe it's trading anywhere right around the plus 175 range. So yeah, Max Homa, it's a course fit for him. And as long as he can kind of refine a little bit of his game, I think he's going to have a good showing, because, again, there's so many first-time players here this week, with it being a signature event and a smaller field, and that it was missed last year on tour as well, right? So that's an important part of the puzzle.
Yeah, Neil, look, I'd be lying if I said I bet a ton of golf, but when I do dabble, I prefer the top 10, top 20 markets more than trying to throw a dart at the board and get an outright winner. So you mentioned Homa with a great price there in the top 20 market. What about the guy you just spoke of as a potential outright at 42-1, Viktor Hovland? I just locked him in after you gave him out as an outright. While you were speaking, I took him top 20 at plus 140. Is that a play that you would also consider? Are there any other top 10, top 20, top 30 market plays that you like as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of the reason I like Hovland this week is because he has 4 straight top 20s at Riviera, right? So that helps. Tony Finau is another long shot that has seen his odds drop quite a bit. He's famously had a couple of runner-up finishes here, back-to-back top 20s, I'm pretty sure. Consecutive top 20s in his past 2 trips, runner-up in 2021 and 2018. So again, a horse for course there. But the best thing that I like about Finau is anyone who's followed him and watched him play and sweated out some of those near wins and those runner-up finishes, which he's famous for, it's often been his putting that's really let him down. Last week, he paced the field at Pebble in true strokes gained on the greens, true strokes gained putting. So if a little bit of that putting momentum carries over, in addition to his just his knowledge of how to golf the ball around Riviera, which is a challenge, I think he can definitely contend, but I do really like him in a top 30. He was plus money. I got him in at 105.
A little bit more north of here, Neil. We saw last week at Pebble the weather be a story. Joe and I are both in the greater Los Angeles area. It's not exactly your best mid-February weather that LA might be accustomed to. It's cold. It's been rainy. It has been very windy this week by Los Angeles standards. I do remind everybody. How do you expect the weather to impact the play at the Genesis Invitational throughout the week?
The latest forecast that I saw was wet, as you just described. I think that might slow the course down a little bit as well. It also will make it longer. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Distance, you're not going to get the same rollout as you would if it was dry, obviously. But my understanding is that we're going to have a dry, clear Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Weather could impact Thursday, but Friday, Saturday, Sunday should be clear. And that's that's the latest forecast that I saw.
Yeah, it'll be 70 and sunny on Sunday for the final round. But you mentioned it is supposed to rain all day tomorrow for the first round. Does that impact how you play that first round? Obviously, you said you like Scotty to win. Do you like Scotty to lead after round one, or maybe someone else?
Yeah, I like Scotty to lead every round. You just don't always get the greatest price. So if I'm already in on the outright, it could be a strategic double down. It's not going to be my play this week, but Xander Schauffele is someone who is sort of trending in the right direction. He kind of started a little bit slow. So we're getting a good number because he hasn't quite put up the finishing touches when it comes to a 4-round event. But he also shot 65 and 66 here in 2024, the last time it was played. So he's shown he can go low, and he's another player with incredible course history here. So if everything clicks for him, I definitely think Schauffele can take a run at the first round leader market. And he was priced at plus 2,500. So definitely someone who's in play. And I always like to look further down the board. I would say Finau would be a potential play there. Hovland, the guys I like, I would like to also have strong first round.
Yeah, got to get off to a strong start of the PGA Tour in these signature events. Neil Parker of Covers.com, at Neil Parker Bets on Twitter or X. Neil, as always, thanks so much for your time.
Hey, my pleasure, guys. Really appreciate it. Enjoy the action, and we'll catch you soon.
Yeah, we'll talk to you very, very soon. On the other side of the break, more MLB futures to look at up next.
So you're listening to this podcast because you want an edge. But what if I told you you're only halfway there? You've got the mindset. Now it's time to get the toolkit to match. Here's the thing. Pro bettors spend thousands on data and tools, but what they don't want you to know is that you can get the same edge for a fraction of the cost with VSiN Pro. VSiN Pro gives you access to expert picks, public betting data, prop projections, powerful tools, analytics, and more. Just tap the link in the description and see why thousands of bettors are already using VSiN Pro to cash more bets.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
A loaded Wednesday afternoon on Money Moves. He is Joe Serralo. I am Ben Stevens. This is VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. We are underway in our fourth and final quarterfinal matchup of the Men's Olympic Hockey Tournament. And this one involves Team USA, the United States facing off against a pesky side in Sweden that was probably expected to contend for a medal at the Winter Olympics. We are underway fully into the opening period, Joe, over in Italy. Scoreless early, just over 3 minutes into this game. The United States remains a hefty money line favorite, laying a goal and a half in the puck line in a pregame total that closed at 5.5 with some juice on the over, up ever so slightly to 6.5 with some juice on the under. So at least the odds makers seeing some scoring opportunities early at the Winter Olympics.
Yeah, and this power play certainly, I would assume, helping in terms of them upping the total there, as the USA just about 20, 25 seconds in to a power play. They've got the first 3 shots on net. Sweden, none thus far. But yeah, I do think 6.5, tough number for me. That 5.5 total, like we mentioned several times in hour number 1, I do think the over there was the play.
The winner of today's game between the United States and Sweden books that fourth and final spot into the medal round. Of course, the 3 other teams that are there surviving in overtime, some favorites entering. Canada getting past the Czech Republic, Finland storming back in the third period to oust Switzerland, and earlier in the day, Slovakia dominant with a 6-2 victory against Germany. Either United States or Sweden will get into the medal round, and of course, the 2 winners face off in a gold medal game. The 2 losers will square off for the final spot on that medal podium, looking for a bronze medal. If we have any updates over in Milan, We will bring them to you, of course, throughout this second and final hour on a Wednesday afternoon on Money Moves. But Joe, earlier in our first hour, as spring training in full for all 30 Major League Baseball teams has began, as we have spring training games this upcoming weekend, we were giving out some MLB looks in the futures market, whether that's a divisional price. Joe likes the Tigers to win the American League Central at plus 120. Some value in the World Series market because every team not named the Los Angeles Dodgers has some value at 14-1 for those Mariners. Also some win totals. I'm on the under of the Cardinals at 69 and a hook. Joe, is there a win total around Major League Baseball that has your attention for 2026?
Yeah, there's actually two that I'm intrigued by, and I'm going to stay in that NL Central with you and your St. Louis call because the Cincinnati Reds, I believe you mentioned you played them a year ago. That win total has not differed much. It's 81.5 at DraftKings. I saw 80.5 out there too. These can vary by a win or two if you shop around. And it comes down to something similar that I mentioned with the Detroit Tigers. Leadership, their manager. You're giving me a Terry Francona team to finish 500. Come on, what are we doing here? Now, the Reds should not have been a wild card team a year ago. They were aided by that monumental Mets collapse in the second half that they were able to sneak in and get the 6th seed. But they still had a respectable season. They still exceeded expectations. Do we think they're going to be worse than they were a year ago? Especially in a division that should be weaker. I think the Reds should only get better. And I mentioned Eugenio Suarez and how the Mariners probably won't miss him all that much. Well, simultaneously, I think it's a great addition for Cincinnati. He's back in a ballpark he's familiar with. Great American, a much more hitter-friendly park than T-Mobile up in Seattle. Who's to say Suarez isn't going to pop out 40 home runs again this year? In fact, that was what the Reds really missed a year ago. In that bandbox of a ballpark, they lacked power. Now they've got that middle-of-the-order power bat. They have terrific pitching. I love Lodolo from the left side. Hunter Green, if he can stay healthy, is an ace on the right side. And the emergence of the kid Chase Burns, who was an automatic K-prop over last year when he was starting. I mean, they've got a rotation. They've got a lineup that's fortified with pop in the middle with Eugenio Suarez. Give me the Reds over 80.5 or over 81.5.
It was the race to 80, Joe, for me all year long with Cincinnati. I had the over of 79 and a hook from back in the offseason, and the Reds got to 83, even earning that National League wild card spot. It is one of the reasons I like to look at win totals in the 70s, really just to flirt with 500. Now, I think the Cardinals in this division will be bringing up the rear in the cellar of the National League Central. My favorite over for 2026, also in the NL Central, it's the Pittsburgh Pirates, over 78.5. Yes, I know it might make you groan to think of betting the Buccos to get to 80 wins, but I think this is the year in the Steel City. Of course, you have the reigning National League Cy Young winner and one of the best in baseball in Paul Skeens. You've got a guy in Mitch Keller that provides that veteran experience. You've got one of the best pitching prospects in the sport in Bubba Chandler that should round out that rotation. You've got the number one overall prospect in Major League Baseball, Connor Griffin, a guy that can play short for Pittsburgh, might be out in the outfield and center field as well. He should probably join this club, if not immediately, not all that long into the season as well. And I love what the Pirates did, Joe, in terms of some additions to some powers and some bats in terms of the middle of that lineup. Ryan O'Hearn from Baltimore, Marcell Ozuna, Brandon Lowe added to the heart of that lineup for the Buccos this year. I think Pittsburgh gets to 80 wins. I'm over 78.5 for the win total, but 80 plus wins on DraftKings plus 160. Give me the Pittsburgh Pirates in mid-September, maybe, just maybe, making a charge to a National League wild card spot in the expanded MLB postseason.
Man, they've got the pitching. This is a team that last year I was looking at over their win total. It just always scares me. Are they going to buy in? If they're competitive at the deadline, are they going to make that necessary move? I love the pieces that they have. I detest their leadership and specifically their ownership. So with the Pittsburgh Pirates, that is what scares me. Although, to your point, over 78.5, I'd much rather play 80 plus at plus 160. I like that bet a lot.
Give me one more win at plus 160. Yeah, we'll take that each
right?
and every day. Joe, you mentioned two win totals that had your attention. The Reds in the National League Central. What was that other team around Major League Baseball?
Yeah, I'm going to take the 5 down south just a couple of hours and fade the Padres this season. I mean, this is a team, you look at their rotation, you look at their lineup, there's talent, don't get me wrong, but they are so top heavy. They have talent, they don't have depth. And I think 85.5 wins has this Padres team way overvalued and way overrated. Also, I talk about direction with your Pirates bet, right? What direction are the Padres going to go in? If they have a disappointing first half, the undoubted strength of this team is its bullpen. Those are the guys you're going to be selling off if you're not playing baseball up to their standard, up to their expectation come late July. So if that crumbles, forget about it. They were talking about maybe flirting with trading some of their key bats this offseason. Obviously, they were just rumors, but I mean, there were Fernando Tatis trade rumors this offseason. I don't think those just came out of thin air. So the Padres, I'm not sold on their direction. After you get Tatis, Merrill, and Machado at the top of the lineup, there are a lot of question marks. After Pivetta and King at the top of their rotation, there's 10 feet of crap, and then there's the question marks, as Billy Beane would say. This is not a team I can buy into this coming season.
Everybody in the National League West, as Joe reminded me, gets to face the worst team in baseball 13 times. That is the Colorado Rockies. So that always could put a win total in peril. But you also see the Dodgers at 102.5. Despite winning the 2 previous World Series, the Dodgers have not hit the century mark in terms of their regular season wins. They understand it is always World Series or bust. Plus 230, Joe, that price on LA to win a World Series. It's why numbers like 14-1 on the Mariners present some value elsewhere around Major League Baseball.
Yeah, by the way, when we're staying in that division, looking at, a team like the Dodgers that tends to play with its food, maybe not, get to the win total despite the end result in October and November being there. How about Arizona? We haven't touched on them at all. 79.5. I know that's right in your range of win totals that you look for. I like the D-backs over. I love that they brought back Merrill Kelly. I think bringing back Zach Gallen for that 1-year deal at that price point was a fine move as well. So they've got the continuity. They've also got, pieces that they acquired in trading Merrill Kelly and Eugenio Suarez and Josh Naylor a year ago. This is a D-backs team. We talk about trade rumors. Ketel Marte was a name that came up, but he's still there in Phoenix. I like this team. I like their lineup maybe more than San Diego's. It's not as top heavy, but it's deeper. The rotation is deeper. We saw some incredible flashes from Ryan Nelson beyond Kelly and Gallen up top. Gallen can't be worse than he was a year ago. I think the D-backs go over 79.5.
I've mentioned my win totals in that ballpark of 70. I got last year Reds over 79.5. They finished with 83. Missed out on the Cardinals. We'll fade them once again. In 2024, Joe, when I put this to the test, over on the Royals, 73.5. They finished with 86. Under on the Angels, 72 and a hook. They finish with only 63. Insights like this, a part of the MLB betting guide. College basketball rolling, but baseball season is also here. And now is the perfect time to bet smarter with VSiN Pro. You sign up today, you get daily best bets, you get real-time DraftKings and Circa betting splits, AI-powered prop tools, plus, as I alluded to, our new MLB betting guide out now. Inside the guide, so many great bets for 2026. Start today for just $9.99 or save 50% with an annual subscription. Visit VSiN.com/subscribe. That's VSIN.com/subscribe.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Monumental Wednesday ahead in college basketball. Just 25 days. That's about 3.5 weeks away from Selection Sunday, when the field of 68 for the 2026 men's NCAA tournament will be unveiled. He is Joe Serralo. I am Ben Stevens. And Joe, I would like to call both of us a couple of college basketball fanatics and aficionados. And we've got a huge slate on this Wednesday night. 59 D1 men's college basketball games with 11 ranked teams in action and 2 top 25 tilts on this Wednesday night as well.
Yeah, aficionados, savants, whatever, flattering word you want to use, you can feel free to inject it in there, Ben. I can't wait for this slate tonight. This is going to be a fun one. You mentioned the 2 top 25 tilts, but plenty more top 25 teams in action. We're going to see now 25 days. We're in the home stretch. How are these teams with some lofty expectations really gearing up for the madness? Michigan showed us yesterday at Purdue, no problem. They went wire to wire on the Boilermakers. By the way, if you got in live at halftime on Purdue plus 14.5, you were able to cash that live action, but Michigan was never in doubt. They were never even close to relinquishing that lead. So we're learning really what the tiers are of, contenders versus pretenders in college hoops right now.
Joe, we said 11 ranked teams in action on this Wednesday. Also 11 ranked teams in action yesterday, including that top 15 till inside Mackey Arena in West Lafayette. It was only a 2.5-point spread, and the Maize and Blue win by double digits, 91-80, over a pregame total of 157 and a hook. Michigan in first place with a pretty substantial lead now atop the Big Ten standings. 15 total wins for the Wolverines in conference. The team that is in second is also Michigan with 13 double-digit wins in Big Ten play. Illinois has a chance to catch them with 13 victories tonight on the road in Los Angeles. But the Maize and Blue have just been utterly impressive and dominant. Entering yesterday's game against the Boilers, plus 425 as the favorites to cut down the nets in early April as a national champion. That number shaved down by $1. Plus 325, Joe, for Michigan now, showing that they are the new number one team in the nation for a legitimate reason.
Yeah, no surprise there. We're starting to get to the territory where it's like, just roll over your bets. Just bet Michigan on a game-to-game basis instead of taking a futures ticket out on them, because the value is simply not there. Here's a team we've touched on, I believe, a week ago when we did this program together. A team that I think kind of mirrors Michigan. If you want a future ticket, how about the Florida Gators? I haven't checked this morning where they're at, but as of yesterday, before the South Carolina game, they were 15-1 still, and that's what I have in pocket. I've got 2 in pocket on outright winners. It's the Gators at 15-1. It's Houston at plus 850, which I actually took after the loss to Iowa State, because even though I gave out Iowa State on this show alongside Femi on Monday, and I was on the Cyclones because they were at home, Houston showed me you put those teams on a neutral, it's the Cougars all day. So Houston and Florida, the 2 teams I'm targeting in the futures market. Michigan, it's just because the value's not there. Bet them on a game-to-game basis. I wouldn't take a ticket at plus 325.
The Gators still 15-1, 8th best number to win a national championship as your reigning national champs. They made easy work yesterday of South Carolina, winning by 14 at home. Joe, 11-2 now in SEC play. Sure, Florida did not cover with lofty expectations as a 22.5-point home favorite in Gainesville. But Dallin Cup was on the show yesterday with Femi and myself, gave out the Gamecocks team total under 65 and a hook because of how good Florida's defense has been in the last 2 months. They hold South Carolina to only 62 points. Another under for Florida within SEC action. 8 of 13 conference games now to the under for Todd Golden and company. Speaking of SEC tilts on this Wednesday night, one of our 2 top 25 matchups takes place inside Coleman Coliseum in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Number 25, Alabama, hosting number 20, Arkansas in the Tide, Joe. A 4.5-point home favorite with one of the highest totals we have seen all year in college hoops, 184.5. How do you break down the game between the Hogs and the Tide tonight in Tuscaloosa?
Ben, I have to be honest, for a game that I don't have action in, this may be the game I'm looking most forward to all season thus far that I don't have a bet on, because I can't wait to use this as an evaluation tool for these teams moving forward. Alabama was really disappointing early on in conference play, but they're getting hot, winners of 4 straight. Arkansas in second place in the SEC behind Florida. I've been saying there's the Gators, draw the line, the Razorbacks, draw the line, and then everybody else. Alabama can join Arkansas in that tier 2 of the SEC, if you will, tonight, but their styles are really intriguing. They are both volume heavy teams. The Crimson Tide, 64 field goal attempts per game. Arkansas, 63 shots per game. They're neck and neck there. Their style, though, couldn't be more different. While they both rely on volume and getting a ton of shots up, Alabama's almost entirely, well, not entirely, but the majority of their shots, 51%, from beyond the arc. The Razorbacks are almost entirely 2-point shooters, and they are as efficient as any team in the country in doing so. Over 60% conversion on those 2-point shot attempts for the Razorbacks. So they're going to try to slash and get to the rack. Alabama's going to shoot, on average this year, they're shooting 35 threes. So they're going to shoot, I would imagine, at least 33 pointers. And we'll see which style prevails. The reason I'm staying away is because I like Arkansas in this spot, but the system play element of either an unranked home favorite versus a ranked team or the lower ranked home favorite versus the ranked team heavily favors Alabama. So that system, that trend, I know trends don't tell the entire story, but it does give me pause in a game where I lean towards 4.5 points with the Razorbacks. It's why I'm going to stay away and use this as a measuring tool and evaluation tool for these teams in the next few weeks.
The Hogs as an underdog this year, 4-4 against the number. The reason the total is in the mid 180s, we have 2 of the 25 fastest teams in college basketball. Nobody plays quicker than that of Nate Oates and his Crimson Tide, the fastest adjusted tempo in all of college hoops. To Joe's point, we did see some of those home unranked favorites last night get the job done against a ranked foe. Ohio State, a needed signature win against Wisconsin, closing as a slight 1.5 favorite. By the way, Luke DeVosta, our producer, his system play using 3 metric sites that might have a different team favored than what the odds makers open the number at. 29-9 against the number in its last 38 plays. There is one that we will bring you from the Patriot League before we give you our best bets on this Wednesday evening. We saw Iowa close as a slight home favorite against number 8 Nebraska. They win that game at home. Their first victory against the top 10 team in Iowa City since 2019. We saw NC State as a 7.5 point favorite, Joe, last night against North Carolina. Sans Caleb Wilson win that game in flying colors. There are not necessarily the home unranked favorites tonight against teams in this Wednesday night slate, but there are a few teams that are shorter underdogs. Oklahoma State catching 6.5 in Stillwater against number 8 Kansas. KU, of course, having its 8-game win streak snap, losing by 18 over the weekend in Ames against Iowa State. In SEC territory, Vandy only a 2.5 point road favorite against Missouri in Columbia. Illinois, 9.5 point favorite tonight in downtown LA against USC. Are there any of those home dogs that might go barking on this Wednesday night?
Yeah, by the way, real quick note on that North Carolina NC State game. There was something fishy about that from the start. In addition to no Caleb Wilson, no Henry Visar, the 7-foot Estonian, who's been a walking double-double. Their second leading scorer, 9 boards per game. So that game, just the second that line came out, that was fishy. When I look at these home dogs, one that actually stands out to me isn't a big dog. It's a small one. It's Mizzou. They were plus 3.5 at home against Vanderbilt. Now that's shortened up to 2.5. So money that would imply coming in on the Tigers in Columbia. Vanderbilt hit the skids briefly. Now they have won 4 out of their last 5. So they seem to have potentially righted that ship. But the Commodores are just not as dominant as they looked in their non-conference schedule. Even early on in SEC play, they dropped a home one to Oklahoma. That's a really bad Oklahoma team. They really seem to fold against formidable opponents, we'll call it. And that blowout loss in Austin, not making me feel good about this one in Columbia, where Missouri's been a pretty good home team this year. So haven't played it yet, but keeping an eye on Mizzou.
Yeah, when you look at that spread, Mizzou has been an underdog of at least 2 points in 4 SEC games. Joe, they are 3-1 against the number. The betting market in love with Dennis Gates and his Tigers. A lot of that betting handle on Missouri. There are plenty of other college basketball games that we will get to in our final segment, including our best bets for this awesome Wednesday night slate in college basketball. But an update quickly as the first intermission nears over in Milan at the Winter Olympics. Still tied at 0-0, the United States and Sweden in our last quarterfinal matchup. Joe, that live total now down to just 4.5 with some juice on the over. Pregame number 5.5.
4.5. That's tempting. You got to think goals are going to come sooner or later. So slow starts, but they might pour on at some point.
We'll update the odds when we get to that first intermission after the opening 20 minutes over at the Winter Olympics in our last segment. And of course, deliver some best bets for this Wednesday in college basketball. That's next.
Hi, my name is Lisa, and I'm a licensed psychotherapist, which means my work doesn't magically end when the session does. There are notes to write, appointments to manage, billing, insurance follow-ups, and somehow all that admin used to creep into my nights and weekends. That's why I switched to Simple Practice. Simple Practice is an all-in-one electronic health record built specifically for therapists with HIPAA-compliant tools and high-trust certification, so I don't have to worry about juggling systems or cutting corners just to keep things running. Scheduling, documentation, billing, insurance, client communications, even automated appointment reminders, it all lives in one place. And if you're starting or growing a practice, Simple Practice also offers a credentialing service that helps simplify insurance enrollment, which can be a huge lift when you're starting to scale. Start with a 7-day free trial, then get 50% off your first 3 months. Just go to simplepractice.com. Again, that's simplepractice.com.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Welcome back to this Wednesday afternoon on Money Moves. He is Joe, I am Ben, and before we go, some best bets on this Wednesday in college basketball in store in just a matter of moments. We'll break down the biggest games on the card on this Wednesday night in college hoops, but quickly over to Italy. In the quarterfinals of the Olympic men's hockey tournament, the United States in action against Sweden, Joe. And at the end of the opening 20 minutes, still scoreless on both sides. 0-0. The United States, who entered around a minus 275, minus 280 money line favorite, still a hefty favorite on that live money line, minus 330. The biggest change in the odds, a pregame total at 5.5 with some pretty hefty juice on the over, is now at 4.5 at the end of the first period, with a little bit more juice on the under as we look at that live total.
Yeah, and only minus 110 to that over 4.5 right there between Sweden and the U.S. I mean, 5.5, maybe we missed the mark there, but I have to imagine, like I said just a few minutes ago, the goals are going to pour in at some point. Slow start, but for Team Sweden, their strength is still unquestionably their forwards and their scoring prowess. Team USA has been putting up 5-6 goals every time they hit the ice. I have to imagine it's going to click at some point. And when they do click, they usually come in a flurry, right? We saw that Finland-Switzerland game. It was 2-0 late in the third. It ends 3-2, ends with 5 goals, 3 unanswered by the Finns. So I still would like that over 4.5 in Sweden-US here.
There is no tomorrow for the loser of this game. We are on to the medal rounds starting on Friday. It is winner go home elimination time in Milan at the Olympic hockey tournament. It should be noted tomorrow, just after 1 p.m. Eastern time, the women's gold medal game in one of the great international rivalries in sport. It is Team USA. It is Team Canada for a gold. The United States, more than a $4 money line favorite. They hammered the Canadians 5-0 in group play. But one of the stars for Canada, who has been injured throughout this tournament, await that status as you get ready for the gold medal match tomorrow between Team USA and Team Canada. All right. Back to college basketball on this Wednesday night. We've got 59 games in total at the D1 level. We've got 11 top 25 teams in action. So, my friend Joe Serralo, what leads you to some Conference USA games that you have a feel on tonight between Sam Houston State and Middle Tennessee squaring off in some CUSA hoops?
Ben, I call them the mid-major moneymakers, right? These top 25 matchups, the lines are so sharp. So the value on the board usually lies within the smaller mid to low market schools. And Sam Houston State has been a cash cow. It might be called the Bearcats. Don't get me wrong. They should be called the cash cows. 17-5 against the spread this year. In their last 10 games, they are 87th percentile in effective field goal percentage and 81st in opponent effective field goal percentage. They are playing as complete basketball as we've seen out of them all season. Middle Tennessee State, playing complete basketball, completely bad basketball. They are low in everything. 37th offensive rating percentile-wise, 35th defensive rating. Sam Houston State also 5-1 against the number at home. Here's the one thing that gives me pause and makes this, I would say, a strong lean. I have not placed it yet, although that number came down from 4.5 to 3.5. I might lay the 3.5. My one pause is that while the Bearcats are 5-1 against the number as home favorites, Middle Tennessee State, a terrible ATS team, happens to be 6-0 as road dogs this year. So while their overall ATS number is abysmal, this seems to be the one spot they're covering in, but I still like the Bearcats over the Blue Raiders.
The Bearcats 9-5 in conference play, but everybody in CUSA looking up at Richie McKay and his Liberty Flames, with one of the best mid-major hoopers in the sport in Zach Cleveland. Liberty is 14-0, perfect in CUSA action. They have 22 wins already this season. You will circle them in a potential 4-13 matchup when the bracket is revealed for the big dance in just about 3.5 weeks. We mentioned the system play from our producer, Luke DeVosta, 29-9 against the number when he uses 3 metric sites, including one from our very own Hoops. Greg Peterson, along with Haslam Metrics and Bart Torvik, that posts a team as a favorite that is different than what the odds makers have. Luke's looking at the Patriot League tonight. Holy Cross and Lafayette, except Holy Cross is now flipped to the favorite. He would still recommend Crusaders on the money line. We'll see if that system play, grabbing the early opening number, continues to hit at the ridiculous rate that it is. If we can throw in CUSA and Patriot League action, you see Holy Cross at home tonight laying 1.5. You're not going to find that in many other spots or on many other sports networks. So we're glad you're here on Money Moves on this Wednesday. All right, Joe, time for best bets. When you look across the college basketball card on this Wednesday night, what is the game that you consider your favorite of the bunch?
Yeah, Ben, I feel bad because we've given great analysis and some strong leans, but it always feels like a strong lean is somewhat of a cop-out. So, folks, here's the one bet that I do have in pocket. It's the one I'm putting my future kids' college tuition on. It's the Clemson Tigers, -3.5. And that tuition will have to go to Clemson if they cover this one at Wake Forest. It is the perfect buy low spot for Clemson coming off consecutive losses and the perfect sell high spot for Wake Forest coming off consecutive wins, because these teams shouldn't be in the same stratosphere. I know Clemson's punted on their last 2 contests, but in conference play, these Tigers have been a defensive force. 90th percentile or better in defensive rating, in limiting opponents' offensive rebounds, which, by the way, Wake Forest terrible on the offensive glass to begin with. So that's a Tiger's strength and a Demon Deacon's weakness. And enforcing turnovers, which they do so over 17% of opponents' possessions. Everything Wake Forest struggles with, Clemson excels at. These two teams, I don't believe, are particularly close to one another. And you look at the ATS numbers, Clemson on the road this year, 7-1, including 5-1 as road favorites. Wake's cover just 5 out of 15 games, just a third of the time at home. Give me the Tigers -3.5.
Joe, we are in lockstep almost. I also think it is an awesome spot for the Tigers on the road in Winston-Salem tonight. And in that very much thought, as Clemson, I expect to win and cover as a road favorite. I look at the total, one of my favorite bets of the night, under 138.5 for all the reasons that you highlighted, that dazzling Clemson defense under Brad Brownell. This has been a team that is focused on the defensive end. They love to control pace. They are one of the slower teams in college hoops. And if they can get Wake to oblige tonight, I think we stay under 138 and a hook. In fact, I'm looking at a lot of totals tonight. I'll rattle through my 2 other favorite bets on this Wednesday. We go over 158.5 in Milwaukee, St. John's, Marquette, some Big East basketball. The Johnnies have won 11 straight. They have covered in 8 of those 11 wins. They are one of the fastest teams in the conference, and Marquette will oblige. I mentioned Clemson wanting Wake to play at its pace. That's what the Golden Eagles do. They are not great this year. In fact, they are 8 games sub 500, but they want to get into their offensive sets early and often, and that's what St. John's wants out of you. I would lay the 8.5 if I had to choose a side in this matchup, but I think just because it will be open and points will be available for the taking, I go over 158.5 tonight, Joe, in Milwaukee.
Yeah, I like that play more than laying the 8.5. That number scares me a little with St. John's. You know, this is a really good team. They're not the best against the number in conference play. And we're seeing that, I feel like, with the top teams in the Big East, sometimes playing with their food a bit, right? Villanova, although actually, no, the Wildcats have been covering a ton, but UConn and St. John's not covering at a remarkable rate I do like your point, pushing the pace here. I do like points galore in Wisconsin.
Shaka Smart, one of the best head coaches in the sport, has been a head coach for 17 years at VCU, then in Austin with Texas, and now in Milwaukee, in danger of suffering his second losing season as a head coach. The only other time, 2016-17, with the Longhorns. The other total I like, under 150.5 tonight in LA. USC and top 10 Illinois. The Illini got back Kylan Boswell over the weekend and held Indiana to only 51 points. He is their best on-ball defender, and USC loves to get to the free throw line. Nearly 25% of their points this year from the charity stripe. Illinois is the best team at not allowing their opponents to get to the free throw line. So I go under 150 in a hook tonight between USC and Illinois. We want to give you best bets. We want to have you add up the bankroll, and you can do that as well with Upside. Every time you fill up your tank, you could be earning real cash back with the free Upside app. Just download Upside from the App Store or Google Play, claim an offer at a nearby station, and start earning instantly. With promo code SPORTS, you'll get an extra 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill up. Many drivers are earning $200 to $300 a year from just gas purchases they were already making. It's simple, it's fast, and you can cash out anytime to your bank account or e-gift cards like Amazon. Download the free Upside app now and use promo code SPORTS for your 25 cent per gallon bonus. Offers vary by user and location. See upside.com for details. He's Joe Serralo. I am Ben Stevens. We appreciate you joining us and everybody here on this Wednesday afternoon on Money Moves on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. But don't go anywhere. Stay with VSiN. Follow the money with Stormy Bond and Tony, and Dustin Sweetelson is up next starting at 4 p.m. Eastern.